Welcome to the Yash and Zach Sports Hour. I'm Yash Padee here with my co-host Zach Kyleman. We're glad you're tuned in on this sunny Friday, September 23rd, and we're back from a long summer, Zach. How much are you looking forward to this show?
Oh, Yash, I've been looking forward to it this entire week. It feels really good to be back in this studio. Last semester, this was definitely one of my highlights of my Friday, so let's get this rolling, man. I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long summer, and you know, I missed being in the studio doing our show every Friday. So it's been a long summer for me too. I'm excited. I'm really hyped to get our show going. So, Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a show to begin our second year on the air. We're going to discuss Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk a little bit about the rookie quarterback class of 2016. We'll also talk about Ball State football's big win against EKU. We'll have our interview with Jake Fox, the Ball State football beat reporter for the Ball State Daily News, in that segment as well. And then to finish off our show, we'll talk about some quick hits for scores for Week 2 of the NFL, and we'll preview some games for Week 3. So if you want to join our conversation, just make sure to follow us on Twitter at YZSportsHour. Our email is also yzsportshour@gmail.com. So, and if you have any comments, concerns, or questions, please email us at yzsportshour@gmail.com, or you can tweet at us as well. So, Zach, let's jump right into this show. Dak Prescott, that's our main topic of today, although we will be discussing the rookie quarterback class and all that other stuff. But Dak Prescott, he came in for Tony Romo this year in the Seahawks game when Romo suffered a back injury in preseason. So when you think about the question, will Dak Prescott be the future for this team, what are your initial thoughts?
Coming into preseason, I would have to, if I looked at just the preseason games alone, I would have to say yes. But then again, preseason is also kind of hard to judge. Going into the season, though, looking at weeks 1 and 2, I would say yeah. I think Prescott could very well be the future of the Dallas Cowboys franchise. I mean, I think Jerry Jones got a very solid late round pick that seems to be paying off right now. The Cowboys could easily be 2-0 right now if it wasn't for one specific pass play that just didn't go out of bounds. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Prescott's showing that he can play at an NFL level and play very well at the NFL level.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has a lot of confidence, a lot of poise when he's in the pocket. But, you know, on our show, we like to have an overarching theme. We had that last year all throughout. But I believe the theme here with Dak Prescott is to make the most out of your opportunities. I read in an ESPN article earlier this week, I read on Twitter, Dak, even in college at Mississippi State, he was the one that was early to the facility. He left late to practice routes with the receivers. When he was drafted out of the 4th round earlier this year by the Cowboys in training camp, in rookie mini camp, he came in early. He studied the playbook. He had Tony Romo as a mentor, and he really took the initiative to move up that depth chart on the Cowboys roster. Oh, yeah. So, I feel that was a theme, and I think he made the most out of his opportunities, and that's why, when he did come in for Romo in the preseason when Romo hurt his back, he was confident and he was ready. He felt ready, and when I think of Dak, I can't help but contrast it with Johnny Manziel. And when Johnny Manziel first started, he had his first start. He played in November. I think it was like week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
And the Browns got blown out like 30-0 in that game. They got shut out. And Mike Pettin, who was then the coach of the Cleveland Browns, in his press conference that game, he said Johnny Manziel looked like a rookie and played like a rookie. Well, in 2016, to use Mike Pettin's words, when I see Dak Prescott, yeah, he looks like a rookie, but he's been playing more mature for his age and for him being a rookie.
He certainly doesn't look like a rookie, at least every highlight that I've seen of Dak. Very impressive for the young quarterback to come out of Mississippi State. And yeah, if you're talking Johnny Manziel as a comparison, that is definitely a complete opposite setup. I mean, we were touching on this in our meetings. Dak's had a DUI arrest previously at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And, he changed his life, made sure that he could get into a positive part of his life heading into the NFL, focusing on his career. So he's proven that he's more focused on career. Manziel obviously was a little misled, I would have to say. Probably just did not have as much of a drive for the game,
Yeah.
Almost I could say a cockiness to him, but
yeah.
Obviously Dak is showing that he is playing at a very elite level.
Yeah, and we're focusing our discussion on Dak, but I can't help but talk about just briefly talk about the other NFC East foe for the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, and their quarterback Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, he's just been lighting it up. He's been on fire for the past. The Eagles are 2-0 under Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, and he's been playing well. He's had a lot of confidence coming in. And if we would have had a show last week, we would have been talking about the Sam Bradford Eagles Vikings trade and what the implications were with that. And I think Carson Wentz has done a great job to come in for Bradford, as just as Dak Prescott has done a wonderful job coming in for Tony Romo, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think, honestly, up until like a week from the season start, nobody saw Wentz even starting.
Yeah.
Wentz was seen as a project. Let him develop. He's more of a raw talent out of North Dakota State. But I mean, these first 2 weeks have been pretty impressive. I mean, now credit last week, the stats don't really look great. I mean, Wentz only had 190 yards passing over 34 attempts for only one touchdown, but his leadership in the way that he presents himself as almost as a veteran. It doesn't even look like it's the same as Dak. They don't look like rookies. These guys look like veterans.
Yeah.
And they look like they played for several years. They manage their offenses very well. They have control of what they're doing. And that's why Wentz is in this conversation. He looks like he knows what he's doing. Same goes for Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
These two look like that they are going to be the future of these teams. They look like that they want to lead these teams and be there.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about Dak and Tony later on in the show, in the second portion of our show, but Dak Prescott isn't doing it alone. He has a lot of help with that offensive line. He has a veteran tight end who's been helping him in Jason Witten. He has Ezekiel Elliott, who has had a touchdown in each of his 2 games, and he's coming out of the backfield, and he can catch the ball too. So he's a dual threat in that opinion. And Dak Prescott, the reason he's been able to feel so confident is not just because he's made the most out of his opportunities, which I think he certainly has. With we'll talk about that DUI arrest and how he changed his life around, and talk about that in the next couple of minutes. But just having that support system with Witten, veteran tight end, and Witten, with Ezekiel Elliott playing the way he's playing. So, Dak Prescott isn't in this alone. And I think that this Cowboys team, as a team, will be able to make the playoffs, in my opinion, just to, because of Dak Prescott's play, because of Ezekiel Elliott's play, and because of the support system and leadership.
Yeah, I think they can get a spot. I would definitely have to agree with that. What spot, though, that's up for conversation, because the NFC East, as always, is kind of a crapshoot in the way that they decide who wins, because it's probably arguably the most competitive division, either by the fact that the teams have not been as great or that they are all equally as great. So looking at the NFC East with having starting quarterbacks as Dak Prescott, Wentz, Kirk Cousins, and Eli Manning, they can probably get a wild card out of there. It'll be tough to get the division, especially the way that the Giants are set up this year, with the defense actually being much improved. Their offseason acquisitions were fantastic, but I think they can get a wild card. I think it's very possible.
And like I said, just with his poise, with his confidence, and he didn't shy away, and that's the thing that I find the most admirable. If to use that word, admirable.
That's probably good.
About
I think that's a good one.
Dak Prescott, that he didn't shy away from the challenge. He wasn't a guy. Yeah, people kind of wrote him off because he was 4th round, but he came out of the 4th round, and that's just what I want to say is that's what making the most out of your opportunities. That's what it means. Is you can come out of the 4th round, or you can come out of of the 4th round, or be the underdog and just make something positive out of something that people are tending to think of as negative towards you.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of what he's given.
Yeah.
And that is what every NFL player strives to have. And right now, the way he's playing, I mean, there's people, including Jerry Jones, that are talking about what's going to happen to Tony Romo.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Romo, there's so many people now that are just going, Romo's fragile, Romo's like glass. I mean, you wonder if they'll even hang on to him in the near future, especially with Prescott being so young and playing so well.
Yeah. But so when we come back, we'll talk more Dak Prescott, and we'll talk more about the discussion about Tony Romo. And I know Jerry Jones has made a couple comments about Tony Romo and Dak, and so we'll mention those as well, and we'll analyze those, and we'll talk about all that and more. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Yash and Zach Sports Hour on WCRD 91.3, the Pulse of Ball State. Welcome back to the Yash and Zach Sports Hour. We're currently talking about the Dallas Cowboys QB situation with Dak Prescott and Tony Romo, and Dak having good showings in his last two games. Now, like I said before, keep in mind, Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick, and I actually, earlier this week, saw something on Twitter that said he was only the 4th rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL that was drafted out of the top 100 draft picks to start a season for an NFL team, behind Kyle Orton, Chris Weinke, and Chris Bierlin.
Yeah. First off, if we butcher the names, we had trouble pronouncing them ourselves.
So I apologize.
It's all that's an impressive stat. I mean, the only one that's recognizable on this list is Kyle Orton.
Yeah.
And two reasons. A, I'm a Bears fan. I remember in 2005 when Orton was drafted, when he come in for Rex Grossman. And B, Orton playing those years out in Dallas. Dallas. No, he did play Dallas, but I'm talking about in Denver when he actually had good years in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very impressive list. That the fact that he's got the start. The question is, can he be more successful than these 3 quarterbacks? Because Orton, out of the top 3, Orton's probably the most successful on this list right now. Dak has a little more of a future to him because it's his rookie year. So we'll see we'll see where it takes him.
Yeah, and like I said before, I was reading a Washington Post article earlier in the week, and in the article it talked about Dak's process and what Dak did to get to this point. And they said, just to summarize it, they said he internalized is the word they used. He internalized the playbook, which means he kind of said it in his mind. He learned it. He ate it. I think the quote they use is, he ate it, he breathed it, and he slept it. So just he came in early, worked hard, left late, like I mentioned before. But and that showed in his stat line in his two games. His stats were terrific, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
For a rookie. In 75 passing attempts in 2 games, he's thrown 0 interceptions, which, by the way, is an NFL rookie record. So, it's not surprising that he's setting rookie records already, just because of his work ethic and because of what he's doing to... Again, we come back to that point of making the most out of our opportunities.
Of course.
So...
Yeah, it's not like he set 38 records at Mississippi State or anything.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
But absolutely, he's making the best of what he can get. And coming from Tony Romo, Tony Romo set so many Dallas Cowboy quarterback records.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard thing to follow up coming into your rookie season.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of expectation on there, especially the last several years the Cowboys have had with trouble with backup quarterbacks.
Yeah. And especially because Dallas is one of the most watched teams in the NFL because they're America's team.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue between Green Bay or Dallas,
Yeah.
but either way, they're one of the most watched teams in the NFL.
Yeah. But just going back to his stat line and why, it's not surprising in a sense. In week 1, I mean, he threw 227 yards. He had 0 passing TDs, but he also had no interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
In week 2 against the Redskins, Tony Romo's favorite receiver is Dez Bryant.
Oh, yeah.
And, I thought, okay, when I was watching that game, that Dak Prescott would go to Dez Bryant because Dez Bryant is one of their most explosive receivers. But Dak Prescott, he did not get scared, did not worry one bit that Josh Norman was covering Des Bryant.
Well, Bryant still had 102 yards.
In that game. Yeah.
He was still averaging very good yardage.
Yeah, I mean, Prescott threw for 292. He also had a rushing TD, and he also threw no interceptions again, which is not surprising considering his work ethic and all that we've talked about.
It was good accuracy too. He only missed 8 passes. He threw 30 passes.
Yeah,
and that's like an average for a quarterback to throw in a game. Yeah. That's impressive. I mean, that's a really impressive stat line. The accuracy coming out of this kid.
And you can tell that he's really putting in the work and the time and the effort to better himself as a football player. And that brings us back to his DUI arrest. He got arrested for DUI at Mississippi State. He came back and he said that that after that it changed his life because he learned the meaning of what football was and what how serious he needed to take it.
Oh yeah.
And you can tell he's clearly taking it seriously now because of again his work, all the time and the effort that he's put into it.
Absolutely.
And the hours that he's logging at the facility. So just it's not surprising to me that he's setting records already in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
So we're gonna dive back into let's see where Prescott came from, because many viewers have heard of him, or listeners. You're not TV guys, you're on radio. But taking a look back at Dak, comes out of Mississippi State, sets 38 records at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for a few games at the end of the year, Mississippi State arguably is arguably in the playoffs last year. They were number one team in the nation for several weeks. Up until they came in and lost to Alabama. Yeah. But still,
last year, excuse me if I
go ahead.
Put it in, but last year at Mississippi State, he had 29 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. So just to show you the type of quarterback that he is, he played in 13 games. In 400, he had 316 completions and 477 pass attempts, which are 66.2%.
Yeah.
So that's pretty high. It's pretty good for.
There's an accuracy coming out.
Yeah, and he threw for 3,793 yards in his last season with the Bulldogs.
Pretty impressive coming out of Mississippi State. It's an SEC school, so you have to expect large play. And the funny thing is, even with these stats, and even him coming from Mississippi State, he still was a lower round quarterback. Yeah. Because it was also a very popular draft class. We talked about Carson Wentz. Yeah. We haven't even mentioned Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Those two, the 1-2 punch. And then Prescott kind of just gets pushed into the back because nobody is really seeing him as much.
Yeah.
And part of it's also because his draft profile, which here on NFL.com they have all the draft profiles of the major players coming out in the draft. Yeah. Prescott is seen by the NFL. They analyze him as, very muscular frame. His height's a huge advantage. Looking over the line and stuff. But a lot of draft analysis came as he wasn't good for intermediate passes. And he couldn't hit the downfield play, and he also was beaten up at Mississippi State a lot. Yeah. He actually had a few injury issues apparently coming out of college. But they're minor compared to some of the other players that we've seen. Yeah. Still, the throwing issues were the biggest thing, and that's probably what dropped his draft value. Yeah. And Jerry Jones, most of us thought, just picked him up as it's another backup quarterback.
Yeah. But Jerry Jones has talked extensively, even last week or this week, last week and this week, excuse me. He talked about, he still wants Tony Romo when he comes back from his injury, but. The question I pose to you, Zach, is, and I'll answer this too. I'll give my opinion on it too. But the question I pose to you, Zach, is if Dak continues to play the way he's playing, do you think we'll see Tony Romo in a Dallas Cowboys uniform out there in the starting lineup if he's healthy?
Well, you gotta wonder about that. That's on everyone's mind. Is what is the timetable on Romo? What's going to happen? And right now, it's hard to say if Romo should start. I mean, last year they tried the same thing. Okay, Romo goes down with an injury early in the season. Okay, against Philadelphia, and he comes back, gets injured pretty much 2 games after, and goes out again. Yeah. So if you are Jerry Jones and you're wanting to keep you're wanting to keep Romo for a few more years
Yeah.
because he has that veteran ability. He can have Prescott can learn behind him for maybe 2 more years, and they'll see where it goes. Probably, maybe you should sit out Romo for a little longer, instead of trying to rush him back in. Because history's shown it hasn't worked before, and Prescott's proving that he can play. If I was Jerry Jones, have him sit, let Romo get healthy. It's a back issue. It's a very serious issue. So let him sit, let Prescott play, because the kid's playing well. Dallas is playing well. They can compete in the NFC East. They can get a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And if they really want Romo to get back, let him sit out, let him get healthy, and if they make the playoffs, start Romo then.
Yeah. And, I think personally, I agree with you in the sense that, let Dak continue to play. If he's in a rhythm right now. Right, that I feel like.
Oh, absolutely.
So, just let him play. Let him play his game. He's been playing well. It's not like he's struggling. He's throwing interceptions, and his interception to touchdown ratio is higher on that interception side. But, you let him play. You let Tony Romo come back, rehab, come back 100% healthy. And the key to that is 100%.
Yeah, don't rush him back.
Don't rush him back in. Don't send him in when he's like 90% healthy.
Exactly.
Just because he's Tony Romo, in my opinion. And that's where me and, Jerry Jones have sort of a, misunderstanding is not misunderstanding, but like we disagree on that. That, Tony Romo, we should just let Dak play. And then because Dak is a rookie, if Tony Romo does get healthy by the playoffs, then maybe you think about putting a veteran like Romo in and seeing how he does and mentoring Dak. Yeah. But, I honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't think that it'll be a problem for Dak Prescott to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Just seeing how confident, how poised, and how quiet and the way he works and the way he plays, his work ethic, way he plays again, and just his style of play. It's there's so much confidence in him, and it's not like a brash confidence. He's not there to, brag to everybody that, hey, I'm the best. He does it in a quiet manner,
Yeah, no, he does. He really does. You also have to keep this in mind too. Dallas is built to be a run-first offense.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones has built arguably the last 4 or 5 years the best line in football.
Yeah.
So going out to get Ezekiel Elliott, as their first round pick, that obviously that shows they want to run the ball first.
Yeah.
Okay. Last year they missed DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray last year probably missed Dallas.
Yeah.
So even with McFadden in the backfield,
and then they have Morris. They got Morris.
They have
from
Morris
Washington
now too.
so.
But still, Ezekiel Elliott, they want to run the ball first.
Yeah.
Prescott just has to make the occasional pass plays. He's doing more than he should right now.
Yeah.
Dallas is set up right now. If you added Romo in the playoffs, they would definitely be looking a lot better.
Yeah.
Get to the playoffs. Get a wild card spot.
Yeah.
If you're doing better, aspire for more. Aspire for the NFC's championship.
Yeah.
But the run game is the first priority that Dallas has been built on for the last several years.
Yeah. And that's why, that was my point of why I think that Dallas why I think Dak is flourishing in Dallas, excuse me.
Yeah.
Both Dak and Dallas are kind of a tongue twister there. But,
it is a little bit.
Dak is flourishing in Dallas because, he has that support system and a veteran tight end in Jason Witten, who's been his mentor, he said, and he's worked with him. Now, you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott has had a touchdown in both his NFL games, both these games.
Oh, yeah.
So both his first 2 NFL games. So, that support system of, hey, I'm not pressured into throwing the ball every time.
Oh, yeah.
That I have a running game. I have a running back in Ezekiel Elliott and Alfred Morris that can, run the ball effectively, that can run through the outside and pick up, 4.6 yards a carry. That really helps with that confidence level. And I think that's where Dak Prescott has that's why he seems so comfortable, and that's where he's picked up that confidence is he knows that, hey, I have a support system in Witten and Elliott and Morris in there. So
yeah. No, he's got plenty of weapons, which is why this also supports why you should let Prescott stay
Yeah.
in. You know, unlike Kellen Moore last year, coming at the end of the year after the second injury for Romo, you know, Prescott has the tools to take advantage of the all-stars that are around him. Des Bryant obviously only needs to have the ball thrown in his general area to get a good catch.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen all through Dez's career, he has arguably the best hands in the NFL.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll take DeAndre Hopkins in that category. But looking at that, I mean, you've got Des Bryant on the outside. You've got Ezekiel Elliott, who in his rookie year is looking like a cornerstone running back that will be starting for years to come for the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the weapons. He is an above average talent right now.
Yeah.
And with a little more time, he could be an all-star in this league.
Yeah, and just looking at, you know, Elliott and how he's helped Prescott, just looking at Elliott's stats here, in 21 rushing attempts against the Redskins last week, he had 83 yards. He averaged 4 yards a carry and has 1 touchdown. And, you know, we haven't mentioned the fact that he can come out of the backfield and catch, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just a run type of guy. You know, he can come out and he can catch the ball, which makes him a dual threat in my mind. And, you know, I think a lot of people rode, just like they wrote off Dak Prescott in the 4th round, I think a lot of people wrote off Ezekiel Elliott and said, you know, Dallas made the wrong choice, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had some of this NFL analysts saying that on ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so just he's not a bad, he's a very effective running back in my eyes. So just looking at his stats,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's why I think the Dallas will make the playoffs. You know, maybe the wild card, maybe they might even win the division. Who knows? You know,
NFC Easton's very wide open as always.
Yeah,
so you can't just pick a winner because you never know.
Yeah, we never know. So, you know, but I definitely think that with this Cowboys team, with this roster, with the confidence level that they have, that they will definitely be able to make the playoffs this year and make a run in the playoffs. And I'd love to see them do it with Dak Prescott. You know, I'd love to see them do it with Tony Romo, but I'd also love to see them do it with Dak Prescott.
Got to be healthy though.
Yeah. What?
I was just saying he's got to be healthy though.
Yeah. So, you know, Tony Romo's got to be healthy, but you know, I think that Dak Prescott is playing mature enough that I think he can handle the playoff pressure. So
I agree. I very much agree with you.
Yeah. So, well, when we come back on the Yash and Zach Sports Hour, we'll talk Ball State football's big win over Eastern Kentucky, and we'll have our interview with Jake Fox, Ball State Daily News football beat reporter, to talk about that big win and to preview Ball State's upcoming game tomorrow against Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Yash and Zach Sports Hour on WCRD 91.3, the Pulse of Ball State. Jake Fox, the Ball State Daily News beat reporter for Ball State football, joins us now on the Yash and Zach Sports Hour. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us, Jake.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem.
Glad to have you here.
Yep. So, Jake, Ball State, their first 2 games, they started off slow in the first 2 games of the season. The EKU game was quite a different story, and BSU got off to a hot start pretty early. So what do you think allowed BSU to jump to a hot start, Ball State jumped to a hot start so fast in that game, and what you saw with the previous 2 games with Riley Neal in that offense?
Yeah, so the biggest difference for me in the first 2 games, especially, they had an early turnover, Ball State did, in both of those games. Neal threw 2 picks in the first game on the first 2 drives, and then in the second game against IU, he threw a pick, and they had 2 fumbles in the first half. So those were obviously drive killers. Last game, they came out, and the defense kind of set the tone. They were getting after the quarterback. They got after Matty Mock early. They tried to bring in a new quarterback, Benny Coney. They got after him as well and got a couple picks, forced a few punts, and they really had a lot of good field position in the first half of that game, and it allowed them to build a big lead early. So,
and just talking about that EKU game this past weekend, Riley Neal was 28 for 39 for 238 yards. He threw for 2 TDs and rushed for a TD, whereas in the Georgia State game, he was 15 for 29 for 130 yards, 2 interceptions. IU 15 for 30. He had a TD, but he had trouble passing during those 2 games. He had a couple interceptions. And so what do you think the Cardinals offense can improve on going into FAU? I know their defense and what came out hot in the EKU game, and their offense was clicking on all cylinders, it seemed like, in the EKU game this past weekend. But what do you think the offense can improve on going into FAU this week?
Yeah, I think they can just continue to be more balanced. The first few games, the running game kind of carried the offense. James Gilbert, Darian Green, those kind of guys had some big games. And Neal was a little bit off, whether that be just first few game jitters. New basically said after the first few games, he just needs to relax, settle down. And he did that against EKU, completed his first 16 passes. With New's offense, Riley has a lot of kind of quick options in the passing game, some quick reads. And things were different last week because Corey Lacanaria missed the game due to injury. Kevon Mabon left the second half with an injury. So some of those receivers, Damon Hazleton and Jordan Hogue and Devin Reese, those guys kind of had to step up, and Neal made it work with those guys. He looked a lot more comfortable in the pocket, had a pretty clean pocket the whole game. So I think with those guys back healthy this week, New told me today that Mabon and Lacanaria are both ready to go. I think having both those guys healthy and the running game still is performing pretty well. So I think the balance is the key for them. The running game is only going to help the passing game as the season goes on.
And I have the same question for you about that defense, the Ball State defense. We've been relating to that and alluding to that in these past couple questions. But, what can the defense improve on, and who do you expect to step up for that defense and take in that leadership role as they go into the Florida Atlantic on Saturday?
For the most part, the defense has held its own through 3 games. The thing that killed them, especially in the IU game, was the big play. IU got a lot of their points and a lot of their yards on a long touchdown pass in the first half over the top, and then a screen pass that went for, I think, 79 yards to open the second half. So I think just staying away from those big plays, not letting those happen. The D-line's been really good. Anthony Winbush has 4 sacks already. That's a pretty solid group. The linebackers, obviously, that's a veteran group with Wiggins. And Zach Ryan and Aaron Taylor. Those are all seniors. They've been there before. I think the biggest thing is just to continue to improve in the secondary. They've been kind of shuffling a lot of guys in and out, and part of that is because they like to do that on defense this year to keep everybody fresh, and they feel like they've got some depth. But they've also had kind of some injuries. Tyree Holder got hurt in the game last week, and he hasn't been practicing this week, so New said today that he's still kind of undetermined going into this weekend. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just getting a group in the secondary that's kind of nailed down, getting 4 guys that you can play there to be your solid group. And then other than that, and eliminating the big plays, the defense has been a pretty good surprise for them, I think, this year.
All right. Well, directing questions to me now. So as we know, every team has their own all-stars, okay? Cardinals, obviously, they have Riley Neal, Kevon Mabon, we have Sean Wiggins, we got Josh Polisley, and I can go into many others. Are there any superstars that we're looking out for coming into the FAU game that are concerning for the Cardinals to prepare for?
FAU has kind of had a tough time to start this year. They won their first game against Southern Illinois, but then they played Miami and Kansas State the past couple weeks. Took a couple bad losses on the road. But New kind of talks about it. He said they're a talented team. He basically says that they're going to be hungry after the Kansas State loss last week because they lost 63-7. Yeah. He said they've got some athleticism. Their pass rush is pretty good. They have a quarterback, last name of Driscoll. His brother is actually played for Florida, Jeff Driscoll. Yeah, he's their quarterback. So I think he's had a few issues with turnovers to start the year. Like I said, they played some pretty talented teams, so it makes sense. But overall, New's kind of been pretty complimentary of their whole roster because he knows they have some talent. They're going to be hungry for a win, too.
Makes sense. Now going back towards the Cardinal side of the ball for the offense, as we've seen the last 3 weeks, the ground game has been impressive from the Cardinals, averaging out to 4.6 yards a carry. It's one of the best stat lines that they have. Now going into the rushing game, though, is this rushing game more impressive because they're wanting to go as a ground first approach as a team, or is this because of Riley Neal struggling the first 2 weeks and they would rather be a pass first team?
I think New wants to be really balanced. I think this has more to do with just a commitment to the run. He talks about all the time, they want to run the ball. They want to be able to run the ball the whole game. Even if they struggle, they're not just going to completely go away from it. I think what benefits them and what has benefited them so far this year, they've got quite a few backs that can make plays. Obviously, James Gilbert has got the bulk of the carries. He's kind of more of a power back, a downhill runner. He scored 3 touchdowns already from in close. They have Darian Green, who's kind of more of a scat back. He's pretty elusive, fast. He's pretty good in the screen game. And then they also have some other guys. Teddy Williamson, he's a veteran. He's been around. He scored a couple touchdowns this year and shown he can make plays when he gets in there. And then true freshman Malik Dunner, too. He's got in the past couple games, picked up a punt for a touchdown at IU and also had some big runs in that game. And he's kind of got some run in the passing game, too. So I think they kind of pride themselves in being a true running back by committee and bringing that approach into the game, and they're really committed to running the ball.
And if you don't mind me interjecting with a follow-up question to that, Malik Dunner, he's had some impressive performances the last couple of games. So how much of an impact do you think he will be on this Ball State team? He's a true freshman, like you mentioned. So he's got another 3.5 years of Ball State football. So how much of an impact do you think he'll be on this team moving forward, and not just this year, but years to come?
I think he could have a big impact, mostly because if you listen to New talk, if someone asks him a question about Malik Dunner, he always mentions his explosiveness. He talks about how he made big plays in camp, and that's how they kind of started noticing him a little bit more. He makes big plays in practice, and if you watch in the game, they're starting to implement more of a 30 formation, basically a 30 scheme where they'll have 3 running backs on the field at a time, and they've talked about even doing 4. So I think he knows that Dunner has that burst and ability to, whenever he gets the ball, he could take it all the way for 6. And he showed that against IU. He had a 23-yard run and a 13-yard run. So I think he's going to get some more time this year. I think he's going to play in just about every game, if I had to guess, based on what I've seen. And moving forward, especially because Darian Green, he's a junior, so he'll have another year, but Teddy's going to be gone next year. So I think in the next couple years especially, Dunner could make some real plays.
Nice. Well, my final question for you actually is based on what many audiences have been seeing from the Cardinals. A lot more fight this year than the last 2 seasons. I've been here, I'm a junior, and I've been here 2 other years. In the last 2 years under Pete Lembo, we've seen a Cardinals team that has kind of seemed a little, I would say, more lethargic, not as energetic to play, but this year coming through 3 weeks, we've seen a team that looks hungry, looks like they're wanting to win. Even in the game against IU when they were down 30-0, they still made it a 10-point game. It was a very winnable game, even with the turnovers in the first half. What is Mike New doing to change the atmosphere of this team compared to the last 2 seasons under Lembo's regime?
Yeah, I didn't cover the team when Lembo was here, so I obviously don't know that entire dynamic. But being here and being around that team this year, it's like New in the staff. It's just been like a breath of fresh air, honestly, for these guys. It seems like they're energized to play every game. They work hard in practice every day. You can tell when you go out to practice, there's a lot of energy, a lot of guys talking. I think that they just had New and his staff that he hired. I think he hired a really good staff. I think they brought high expectations into this team. Even though it was only a 3-win team last year, it felt like to me that the expectations were higher than what you would normally see from a 3-9 team the following year. Like, for example, you mentioned that IU game that they came back a little bit. So they get down 30-0, end up losing 30-20. First thing New says when he comes into his press conference after that game, he said there are no moral victories. He said, I'm happy with the way our guys fought back, but a loss is a loss. There's no moral victories. And I think that just kind of speaks to the expectations that he brought in, even against a Big Ten team. Like, we want to go out and compete every single game, no matter the opponent. And he's talked before, he wants to compete for a MAC title and those kind of things. So I think it's just been, he has shown those guys that he believes in them. Obviously, he hasn't been with them a long time, but I think it's just kind of brought a new energy to the team, and obviously there's been a lot of enthusiasm in the game so far.
Well,
I agree. I completely agree with all of that.
Yeah. Well, that was Jake Fox, Ball State Daily News beat reporter for the Ball State football team. Thanks for joining us, Jake.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. It was great.
Yeah, Jake, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, that was Jake Fox, Ball State football beat reporter for the Ball State Daily News. Ball State will be playing Florida Atlantic tomorrow night at 6 p.m. in Boca Raton, Florida. When we come back, we'll wrap up analyzing the Rams' Week 2 back in L.A. and previewing some of the Week 3 games. Don't go away. This is the Yash and Zach Sports Hour on WCRD 91.3, the Pulse of Ball State. Welcome back to the Yash and Zach Sports Hour. Before we sign off for the night, let's take a look at some history in the making that took place last week in Los Angeles. It was 22 years ago when the Rams last played in the City of Angels, but they made a triumphant return last Sunday to a packed LA Coliseum. Yash, what does this mean for the city to have football again?
Yeah, Zach, it's big for the entire city of LA. I mean, 22 years they had no team to root for. Will Smith, he was a big fan of the Los Angeles Raiders. And so, so was Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson actually came on. I watched an interview that he had with Jimmy Fallon. It was him and Peyton Manning. And, before Peyton Manning announced his retirement, he was trying to recruit Peyton Manning to play for the for the Rams.
Yes.
In L.A. And he said he was one of the first people to get season tickets for the Rams. So I think it's big for the entire city, but you also have to feel bad for the St. Louis community, St. Louis fans, because they're left without a team to root for.
Yeah, they surely will miss football. That is one thing I will have to say for them. With the return of the Rams to LA, though, there are many reported problems with the first home opener. Very serious. Many fans had issues with parking prices. Some reported at $200 to park your car.
Yeah.
There are also several other violent incidences that security had to break up. And there were 160 cases of heat-related issues, like health issues, at the game. The stadium ran out of water at coming towards the end, and food. Yash, the Rams have to play at least 2 more seasons in the Coliseum before they move to their beautiful new stadium that's going to be built in Inglewood. It's supposed to rival Jerry Jones's little, or should I say, very large stadium
in San Francisco.
And Levi Stadium.
So,
Is this more just? Is this even acceptable for the first game of the season, or is this just very poor management on the Rams' part to open up in LA?
To answer your first part of that question, I don't think it's acceptable to run out of food, run out of water, to have so many issues with parking, but it's LA, so
true.
You have to take in the geographic situation for that. But, I think that it was poor management, but it was also eagerness for the staff, the volunteers. Everybody's hyped up because, the Rams are coming back to L.A. They're playing in L.A. for the first time in 22 years.
You couldn't have as great of a setup as the Rams to be moving back in L.A.
And
they get
for them to come off with a win.
Yeah.
In their
first
home game in L.A. in 22 years.
Credit was kind of a snooze fest.
Yeah.
But it's defensive people love these type of games, so it was exciting to say the least.
Yeah.
One thing I will say for sure though about the Rams, they could not have a better opportunity to start. You're playing in the LA Coliseum. Do you know how famous the LA Coliseum is? It's been around for 93 years.
Yeah.
It has hosted the Rose Bowl for most of its life, and it is one of college football's icons and gems in that spectrum.
Yeah.
And now you get to have the Rams play there. That's huge revenue coming into that stadium, and that's a lot of history being shown there.
And that's what happened with the Vikings when they played in the University of Minnesota Gophers Golden Gopher Stadium for a couple of years before. Now they have the new US Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
With glass.
It's a very beautiful stadium.
It's a very beautiful stadium, and it's not acceptable in any form for this, but I just think that everyone was just so excited and eager to see the Rams play, and I think the fans had a lot to cheer about because the way that the Rams did play with Keenum, with Alec Ogletree on the defense. So I don't think we'll be seeing that in the future with the stadium. Hopefully. We never know, but hopefully not. We don't see any water running out or any parking issues. But I just think for this first one, they were just hyped up for the game. So
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you have so many of those fans who from 1994 on have been craving for football back in LA.
Yeah,
I mean, LA. It wasn't just the Rams that left in '94.
Yeah,
the Raiders also left in '94. So LA was stripped of both their teams in the same year.
Yeah,
but I mean, again, very good job that the Rams are back. But yeah, they just need some improvement, in my opinion. Now, looking forward to Week 3. The Rams obviously play. Everyone plays. There's still no bye weeks.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of pretty nice matchups out there. For example, one of the ones that I noticed, you have Kansas City and New York, the Jets. That is.
Yeah.
It looks like a very promising one.
Yeah.
You have the Broncos taking on Cincinnati.
That's a playoff matchup.
Yeah,
in my sense. You could see those two teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, Simeon's no joke.
Yeah,
that's what we've
Simeon's
seen.
no joke. I mean,
You have Carolina with now a revamped Minnesota because Sam Bradford looks like he turned back the clock and looks like he can outperform any quarterback.
Yeah.
Looking at this week, though, Yash, what's your preferred game? I mean, there's some good ones out there, but what is your preferred game?
My preferred game, Zach, to tell you the truth, Steelers and Eagles.
Oh, okay.
Steelers and Eagles. That's my Week 3 go-to game because I want to see how well if Carson Wentz, like as we've talked about him with Dak and comparing with Dak, I want to see if Carson Wentz can continue that success, if he could stay consistent, and he's just fun to watch. I mean, he is. He was at the top of jersey sales after Week 1. I don't know if you know. I read an article after Week 1. Carson Wentz's jersey sales skyrocketed.
Yeah,
because he's just a kid that's fun to watch. He's relaxed, he's laid back, and doesn't take too much pressure, and he can still play really well.
Yeah, if you're listening to Joe Biden, you'll want to get on the Wentz wagon. That's what we've been hearing from him. That's a pretty good one. I am pretty intrigued by that.
And also because, if you look at the stats for 2016 for the Steelers and the Eagles, the Steelers, they've had 811 yards of total offense in 2 games. Their opponents have had 796.
Yeah.
And they're a physical team. The Steelers are.
Oh, yes, they are.
And Philadelphia in some ways is as well. But, and then they've had 271 total rushing yards to 101 to their opponents. So, it's definitely the physicality of it. It's going to be a physical matchup, and it's going to be a physical game. And I think it's one of those games that's gonna come down to the wire, and those are the types of games that I enjoy watching. I don't enjoy watching a game where it's like 38-0 in the third quarter, and
I mean we all love a competitive football game.
So I think this one will really come down to the wire, and I think it's gonna come down to the quarterbacks, Roethlisberger and Wentz, and how many turnovers each one commits, and that's gonna be the deciding factor for the game because both defenses are solid. Yeah,
this will probably be Wentz's biggest test so far to start the year. I mean, you get the Browns, and I'm a Bears fan, but Chicago is not high caliber. Yeah. So going to play Pittsburgh, but they get them at home though. That's at least the only advantage they will have.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my 2 cents into this for this week.
What game are you looking forward to watching?
I'm actually pretty torn. There's really good ones here. But looking at competitiveness, I see it more as I'm curious to see the Kansas City and New York Jets game. Both of these teams have their defenses are very ferocious. You got Todd Bowles, who has built up that Jets defense back to what it was before Rex Ryan kind of let it slip a few years ago. And then you have Andy Reid, who he doesn't flash you, but their team with Alex Smith and
they don't have Jamal Charles.
Yeah, and Spencer Ware though he still plays at an excellent level. Yeah. This is going to be a very competitive football game.
Yeah.
Honorable mention for my fantasy team will go to New Orleans and Atlanta because I have both Brandon Cooks and Drew Brees. I need these guys to step up. Yeah. I am already losing 23-9 in our WCRD league, so this is going to really need to come in handy for me.
No, you think though, going back to the New York game, you think that Fitzpatrick can, quote-unquote, work his Fitzmagic with Brandon Marshall?
Fitzmagic. I can never get over that.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard him called the Amish Cannon. I mean, yeah, no, I think he can. It is a tough defense though. Marcus Peters is obviously the all-star in that secondary, and for Eric Berry. So that's why I have that as my game to watch if I am able to.
Yeah, I mean it'll be a fun week 3. A lot of tough matchups and a lot of tough games. A lot of games that you may see these teams battling it out in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Like
no, I mean the Jets and Kansas City Chiefs. That's a very easily a playoff matchup.
Yeah.
You know, Minnesota and Carolina.
Yeah.
Denver and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
These are all very possible matchups.
Yeah.
So,
and just to throw out there, just another game that I am looking at now and that came to mind was the Browns and the Dolphins. You know, I want to see Cody Kessler out of USC make his first start because RG3 and Josh McCown are.
Everyone's always curious how the Browns do, and
Yeah.
you know they're in rebuilding phase, and
Yeah.
it's been really hard for them. I mean, you know, you have RG3 who looks so promising preseason, gets knocked out week 1 with a shoulder injury,
Yeah.
and then you have McCown who has been injury prone the last few years, but
Yeah.
showed promise against Baltimore. You know, it was hope. You know, it seems like sometimes the football gods just do not give out justice, and it seems like Cleveland has not been given due justice as of late.
Yeah.
But it's going to be curious just because it's a rookie quarterback, and rookies have been playing very well this year.
Yeah. So, well, that's all the time we have for tonight. If you're wanting to keep up with Zach and myself, you can check us out on Twitter at YZ Sports Hour for constant updates and articles from the sporting world, and we'll preview what we're going to talk about the next week on Twitter. And you can also check out this broadcast again on YouTube at our YouTube channel, Yash Zach Sports Hour. So again, make sure to follow us on Twitter for updates throughout the week for our next show. And don't forget to tune in next Friday at 7 p.m. for another edition of the Yash and Zach Sports Hour. For my co-host Zach Kallman, I'm Yash Padee. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.